right, welcome to another edition of Ty's Take. I'm Dave, founder and sort of smart space guy. I'm joined by the star of the show, former space marine turned space advocate Ty Rade. Hello, Ty. Welcome, everyone. And as Ty always says, let's get started. We're just going to pick up our conversation. Ty and I, in these initial videos, we've been getting to know Ty, and she's been getting to know us, and specifically Earth and what's happening in our pursuit of space, which is, of course, 40 Sun's focus, and that's been one of her big pushes is to get people active and to make sure that we don't lose any ground on that. So, well, I thought we just kick this one off, Ty, let you continue with any questions you might have, and I will do my best to take them up.
Yeah, so on that point, we've mentioned now a lot about people and their awareness of space and going to space and like the fragility of Earth. So can we clarify what part of Earth exactly is fragile?
Good question. And we do tend to look at it that way, but it's a very, I think, human-centric way of looking at it. The Earth itself is actually not fragile at all. If the Earth were a basketball, then the crust that we live and build buildings on and put subways through and everything else would be like a coating of tinfoil. Like if you wrap some tinfoil around a basketball, that would be the Earth's crust. It's pretty easy to imagine that getting, damaged or knocked away. And obviously we rely on that. We rely on the atmosphere. If it were an apple, it would be like the skin. That's how much the crust is of the actual Earth. So the Earth itself isn't actually fragile. What is fragile is us and our dependency on it. It's amazing how solid it all seems, but all it would take would be, one big super volcano going off, an asteroid, another big rock hitting the Earth, just transforming the landscape. It would ruin civilization for us. So when we talk about Earth being fragile, we're really talking about us being fragile. So what we do in our treatment of the Earth, and specifically the climate, I think a lot of times it gets used when it comes to climate. And so that is what we need to work on, because we are fragile and small changes in that can dramatically affect us. It's actually kind of funny, as advanced as we are now with our civilization compared to, say, a hunter-gatherer of 10,000 years ago. The stuff that we're doing today wouldn't even be imaginable in their dreams. It's like the things we're able to do and the mastery of our environment and the cities we live in and so forth. But in one particular regard, when it comes to climate, it's actually funny because the Earth throughout its history has been through many different spikes, peaks and valleys, temperature, ice ages, hot periods. What we're going through now and the temperatures we're talking about when it comes to, global climate change and global warming and that sort of thing are really nothing. They're little blips, in the overall scheme of the Earth's temperature variations.
The climate that people have been talking about instead of like past dramatic.
Yeah, exactly. Our current climate, our current climate change and that sort of thing is really in the history of the Earth. Again, framing it in relationship to the Earth. The Earth isn't fragile. These atmospheric changes are actually they're not normal because we are affecting them. We are, causing these little spikes, but they are little spikes compared to what the Earth has been through in the past. But the funny thing is, our ancestors of 10,000 years ago, when there would have been, if there was a change like we're experiencing now, and the sea levels rose, then they were a lot more resilient than us because they would just pick up their stakes and go build a grass hut further inland away from the water. If the ice sheets were coming down, they could just migrate south. They weren't dependent on cities and the vast infrastructure and network that we have in place. I mean, we're very in place. So our cities aren't going to go underwater, but all it takes is a few feet, rise in sea level, and suddenly the parts that we need, the ground level stuff, is underwater, and it just affects subways. It affects, anything below a certain level. So we now with the civilizations that we have and that we depend on are very fragile, and we're very susceptible to these little changes, little fluctuations in temperature.
Wow.
So we need to be doing what we can to you know safeguard against that and reduce as much as we can the impact that we're having on the climate. So
So
the
people
earth
are
isn't
more fragile
fragile,
now.
we're fragile.
Wow. So people are
Yeah.
more fragile now than you say they were before.
In that one particular sense, yeah. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to security in our environment, I mean, we're not going to get mauled by a tiger now. You know,
Right.
you might have back then. Our chances of surviving any given day are very high. You might have had a 60% survival chance back then. There's so many ways, obviously, that were so much more advanced than they were back then.
Hmm.
And in that one particular regard, they were very mobile. They were very resilient to the climate change. Any if there was a climate change, but we are not. So we got to do what we can to make sure that we're not impacting negatively that climate.
That's interesting. So then, regarding that, we've also mentioned how people need to go to space for future like creation and building of civilizations to
Hmm.
expand. In that regard, do you feel we need to escape Earth like faster?
Yeah, and establishing and building that extraplanetary existence is what 40 Suns is all about, but
Hmm.
not to escape. We're not saying there's any, or this isn't like, panic driven doom and gloom. There's not any reason we have to escape Earth. What we need to do is create options to Earth. And that's really, really all we're advocating for, all we're doing. Earth can't be our only option.
Okay, but it's an option. So we're not necessarily
Yeah.
trying to get everyone like out to space and off of Earth.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. If we become extraplanetary, if we become a civilization that's reaching out into our solar system and so forth,
Hmm.
not everybody will go to space. A lot of people won't. Not everybody goes to Fiji, but it's nice to be able to go to Fiji, right? So
All right.
just because we become extraplanetary and spacefaring doesn't mean a majority of us are going to go, but it's nice to be able to have that option.
Okay,
Long
that's cool.
ago, people took journeys across the sea, and not
Hmm.
everybody was doing that. It took a lot of resources and a lot of materials to build big ships and move things across the ocean and go find new land and new countries to inhabit and so forth. Had we never done that, everybody would just be in these little isolated pockets around the world and very
Yeah.
susceptible to the local dangers and the local environment. They wouldn't have had other options. So that's all we're saying. That's all we're saying is that we need more options, and getting off the planet is a way to establish those options, but not because we have to run, not because the Earth is in imminent danger. It really isn't. But we do need to be number one cognizant of what we're doing and take steps to safeguard and protect what we have here. And then we need to also be looking for ways to move out and go beyond it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I agree with that.
So we'll keep this one there, and we'll jump back on in a little bit and do another one and get some more questions. Awesome. All right, Ty. I'm going to hit our little end screen, and we'll see you guys in the next one.